Good morning, boys and girls. Another day, and the world keeps turning. Again, I'd like to draw your attention to the beautiful readings from the Flower Ornament Scripture, the Flower Ornament Sutra, that are under the Buddhas that you see on the channel. They're marked differently because instead of having a woman's face, they have these little Buddhas in bronze. And it's an extraordinary sutra, and it's the most extraordinary. One of the most extraordinary things about it is it's been translated into plain English. Now, I'm not recommending it to the impatient or to people who are not serious, but if you are serious and you can muster up a little bit of patience, I suggest listening to the sutra. And I'm going to do something I don't know if I should or not, but so many people are having difficulty falling to sleep. To fall asleep to a sutra is certainly not going to hurt you, and it could, help you. I don't know. So that's another excuse to listen to it some night when you're so inclined. All right, let's go to questions.
I have a question about the Avatamsaka, actually.
Okay.
So I've been reading it. I read it. I think I've read it twice now, and then I started reading it again this year. And then recently I've been I've been working a lot, and so I've been tired when it comes to the evening or time to read.
Okay.
And it's feeling just like I'm kind of just reading it to get it over with.
Okay. How long has it been since you read it last?
I had finished reading it last year at some point, and now and then I restarted, and I'm halfway through it.
All right, that feeling is someone that everyone who's read that sutra has felt, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just trying to get through it. And I guess that in the beginning, that's okay. I think just getting through it, but making sure that you let it get into you one way or the other. Are you reading it out loud?
Mm-hmm.
Good. Well, then I think that feeling of I just want to get through it or whatever. I mean, if it's too intense, then you should put it down and come back, a bit later. But the thing about it is that you don't have to worry about getting it so much as it getting you.
Mm.
And so everybody's had that feeling. Everybody who's approached that book. And I would say just hang with it, but if it's too much, then put it down and come back in a month or 3 months or something like that.
Okay.
Later in life, it won't be like that. Later in life, when you open it, you're surprised, and you learn something every time. It's amazing.
Mm.
So that's what I would say about that.
Okay.
Somebody else might say something different. Now, are you reading it with anybody else?
No.
Well, if possible, if you know anybody who's interested or inclined, reading it with someone else does two things. One is it helps the other person, and two is that it makes it easier on you. And being a sutra, these things are meant to be read out loud, most often in groups, right?
Mm.
And so that's something else to consider. And maybe there's other people who want to be Buddhists or who are just interested because they want a ladder to truth, in which case, read it together.
Okay.
That helps too, the shared energy.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And another thing you could do, because we have it now, we've never had it in the history of humanity, you can listen to, what's been videotaped and read along as you're listening. So that's another avenue.
Okay.
And then the final point is that some people find that if they make a real ritual out of it, they read at the same time every day, and they have a candle or some incense or a sculpture of the Buddha or something like that, but that helps too.
Yeah.
That's one of the rationales for ritual.
Yeah.
All right. So those are just some ideas. All right.
Okay.
Okay, good.
Yeah, and I guess the other thing there is I had the inclination recently to start reading the Sufi books again.
Oh, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Any inclination like that, definitely. And start. Yeah, do that.
Okay.
You'll find that they're different books, largely.
Yeah.
And now that you have, you're more familiar with the Avatamsaka, you'll find how much overlap there is in a strange way.
Okay. How so?
The one that just jumped in my mind, that one where the guy's asleep and he wakes up and his leg is tied to somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
And he's not sure who's who.
Mm-hmm.
Right? He hits him with a stick or something. He says, "What are you doing with my body, my leg," or something like that.
Yeah.
That one comes to mind.
Mm.
See, this notion of not one, not two is very central in Zen, in the Tibetan tradition, although they don't put it that way. In truth, see, with our brains, we have a logic that says, well, something is one thing, or something else.
Mm-hmm.
And in reality, it's not like that. And also, we have this numerosity that underpins our logic, but that's only one kind of logic.
Mm-hmm.
So let me see if I can give a simple example. You go to sleep and you have a dream. Your dreaming is you. Well, that is you, but that's not you, right? It's a dream you.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously it is you. It has to be you. You're dreaming it.
Mm.
And then it goes on from there. Like, whose mind is it anyway, right?
Right.
So you have to read them. That's not a good one for the public, for the way I described it. But you just have to read them. The other one that comes to mind is that one where the Mulla is asking kids where they're going because they're all running somewhere. And they're saying they're going to a fair to get some ridiculous thing that they're not going to get at the fair. But the Mulla, they're so enthusiastic that the Mulla ends up joining them, right?
Yeah, because what if it is?
Yeah, if it is, and so much of that. See, that's very useful in life, right?
Yeah.
So, or the one where the Mulla's trying to make yogurt out of a lake.
Mm-hmm. What if it takes?
Yeah, what if it takes? So yeah, definitely do that. Yeah, that's a good impulse to have.
Okay.
Well, if one book's not appealing to you, you go to another one.
Okay.
All right, good.
Something else I noticed recently. So I know I used to have like a sense of urgency regarding dharma.
Mm-hmm.
And I still feel like I do a bit, but it doesn't feel as much of that big sense of urgency. It just feels like,
well,
and I don't know.
The sense of urgency is, frankly, it's extra in one way, but it's not extra in another way. I would guess that your life is going fairly well.
Yeah, exactly.
And so typically urgency accompanies suffering.
Right.
Or impending suffering or past suffering or something like that.
Yeah.
So that's fine. That's fine. Just note it and then keep going.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, urgency doesn't, in the ultimate sense, it doesn't, well, it's hard to know. Like remember in school, where you didn't study for much of the semester,
Mm-hmm.
and then you came to the exam, the week before the exam,
Mm-hmm.
and you felt a sense of urgency.
Yeah.
Well, at least you got it. At least you covered the material better. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It would have been better had you just kept us a steady, pace.
Yeah.
But humans aren't like that necessarily, and so it's a mixed blessing, urgency. But life is short. Remember that.
Right.
Too.
Right. But then my understanding is that taking a step back, that sense of urgency, within that sense of urgency comes thoughts like, oh, I need to spend more time, reading the Avatamsaka, or more time meditating, or more time contemplating things.
Okay, well, that's not urgency. That's just setting your priorities straight.
Right. But then
dharma will color your whole life. Have you noticed?
Yeah.
And it'll improve it too.
Yeah.
And so not only is it improving your understanding, your insight, but it's improving your way of relating to the world, and it's making your world richer.
Mm-hmm.
So I wouldn't call that urgency. I'd just call that sanity.
Mm-hmm.
And putting your priorities in the right spot. How much time have we each wasted doing something that meant nothing, even a week later, a day later,
mm-hmm.
right? It just wasted the time.
Yeah.
You don't want that on your shoulders when you're older.
Right. But then I'm thinking having my life in order, which means maintaining good relationships and working hard and having a good career is part of is itself part of dharma in a way. It's necessary for.
Very good. Absolutely. I don't remember the book, but it's called religious practice.
Yeah.
And they talk about everything is religious practice. There's no boundary between the real or the dharma, which is the same thing, and the everyday world. Those boundaries are artificial and created by a mind that thinks that dharma is somehow something separate and different. So as you understand more, you begin to see how the world is teaching you and how your experiences are teaching you. And then you're really on your way, because the universe, I'm convinced, as a matter of fact, I know it as a fact, that the universe is trying to bring you home.
Mm-hmm.
And it does that obviously not just with books or not just with meditation, but in your day-to-day life, you'll see things. There's no such thing as synchronicity. There's just messages that are so big that come and hit you upside the head. But when you start realizing that Buddhas are everywhere, and so are Harukas, and so are, the fearsome deities or whatever, and then you start to learn what it means to be in the world but not of it. And so if you can watch your political enemies come and go and have no emotion one way or the other, negative or positive, then good for you. You're better equipped to deal with the world. Do you see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And so all the tragedies that we see arise before us, and crises and things like that, whether they're big or small, all of them are teachers.
Mm-hmm.
And so then you start to practice in the world, and it sounds like you know that that's the case, and so that's what you do.
Mm-hmm.
And there's explicit instructions to listen for teachings everywhere they could be, and they can be everywhere.
Right.
So I don't want to sound all new agey or anything like that, but you'd be hard pressed to find 2 days in a row when a Buddha didn't reach out to you, either directly and say something to you, right? Literally, I mean, with their mouth say something to you, or say something to you in the way circumstances had been arranged. That's the wonder of it all. Oh man, I saw a science fiction movie. Have you seen Dark City?
No.
I wish I could recommend it, and I think I might be able to, if you're willing to deal with some pretty funky. The way I got it, heard about it was somebody said, there was another science fiction movie that was very good, has a cult following, but it got drowned out because it was released the same year as The Matrix in '98.
Okay.
And I won't spoil it for you, but there's some surprises. Not for your girlfriend, I don't think. Not for not that I know her, but just not women. I don't think are going to enjoy it. You have to be a pretty hardcore science fiction geek.
Okay.
And the interesting thing is, it's a very philosophical piece, and you'll have realizations in the middle of it. At least I did. So I mean, tiny ones, but something. And so, see if you're interested or not. I'd be interested to see what your opinion was. Okay. But it's something you watch when unless your girlfriend's into science fiction.
Yeah.
It's got space aliens in it, so that kind of turns a lot of people off, and I can see why. The other thing you might enjoy is Childhood's End by Arthur C. Clarke, the guy who wrote 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Childhood's End?
Yeah, and it's very interesting because this one I think I can recommend because humanity is it sounds like a trope, but humanity is over the earth. These large spaceships, let's say, just appear, and in them, although the humans aren't allowed to see them, are these aliens, I guess, extraterrestrials or whatever, and they start running the world, and they run the world into a utopia, basically, because they outlaw war, they outlaw cruelty to animals. They if things start to go out of whack, like in South Africa, they were killing a bunch of white people. Their ship just blanks out the sun for a while. Right? Or they blank it out without the sun. They use some kind of polarizing filter. And so everybody's more or less behaving. And within 50 years, they have humanity really in essentially utopia. Everything's made by the robots. And everybody has what they want more or less. And now they're starting to talk about the boredom. But the reason it matters is because the fantasies of being taken care of by this master, far more intelligent alien race matches the feelings of many people towards AI. That AI is going to take care of us. All we have to do is wait for the AI to tell us what the right thing to do is.
Right.
And other people have the exact opposite. But the point is, it's really about humanity and facing the end of humanity. If it's the end of humanity. I don't know. I've only read half the book. But
so there's
that kind of thing. This way, exactly what your generation should be thinking about.
This is the book, or there's a mini series as well.
Yeah, forget the mini series.
Okay,
that's garbage. Yeah, read Arthur C. Clarke's Childhood's End. Now, even if you don't, your generation needs to start thinking about, okay, how do we think about this AI taking over our planet? And this is very, very important because more people than not think that that's likely. For example, absent a war or a nuclear exchange or something like that. And so the question is, are we okay with that? There's a lot of people who are okay. I'm not gonna opine on it, but they're okay with humanity ending. Right? And they'll say things, well, yeah, of course, because everything's impermanent, this and that. But the question is, do we want to facilitate the ending of our species? And then, of course, there's people who say, well, of course, our species is going to go extinct. so many other species have gone extinct too.
I mean,
but we're not
eventually.
like other species. What?
Eventually. Well,
but it eventually could be after your kids die.
Yeah.
Or it could be in 50 years, 30 years,
or 3 million years.
Well, that's very different. To me, 3 million years sounds different than, by the year 3000 or by the year 2700 or whatever.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But anyway, there's some people who just passively want to watch this happen. There's other people for whom it can't come soon enough. There's other people who believe that, no, there's something sacred about the human, and there's something sacred about life. And these machines, if they're just machines, will not be alive, as you know, and they won't be conscious. But they can still take over. What do you think?
I don't know. The more immediate thing is these machines can be used by humans to take over.
Very, very good point. But then you mean by one side or another?
Yeah. More by a group of people, by a country, by...
Right. Okay, what's being done to prevent that?
I don't know.
By intelligence agencies.
What's that?
What about intelligence agencies and secret government? Intelligence, NSC, CIA. I mean, we don't even know the initials of these places.
Yeah.
Or by, let's say, the Communist Party, the Chinese Communist Party.
Well, there's a whole, there's a lot of different things come to my mind. One thing that comes to my mind is if a group, say the CIA, creates this super intelligence or entity or just really intelligence AI, that AI might tell it to do things that threaten the CIA's power, and so would it actually allow it to do it?
That's interesting, and that's one of the themes in this book, Childhood Zen. Yeah, but is that hope, or is that? Are you thinking that's likely because machines are so benevolent?
No, not even as a I don't think it has anything to do with benevolence. It has just more to do with if you think through how these things would progress and be iterated on, if they would need, in order to evolve, they would need the opportunity to act on the world. But if they're owned by different groups, they won't be allowed to act on the world freely in ways that...
If they're owned by different groups, I agree with you. So one of the things we can do is make sure that there's not just one.
Right, which seems seems to be what's happening right now. And
there's one that's that the NSA is already in there on the board, and they're the most powerful one.
Yeah.
Or one of the very most powerful ones. And also we don't know what they've done because the NSA and the Deep State are already, and the Pentagon, frankly, they're not going to share that.
Right. But
anyway, I'd love to discuss it more, but I think this is something your generation has to grapple with.
Yeah.
And you're in tech, and you guys need to figure out. I mean, Elon says there's a 20% chance of the thing will wipe us out.
Mm-hmm.
Other people say there's a 50% chance.
Mm-hmm.
Other people say there's no chance.
Yeah.
But the thing is, do we want? It's one thing to have an intelligent, living, conscious being.
Mm-hmm.
It's another thing to have a machine that's just a machine. I mean, every machine will fail. I can tell you that as an old man. There's no such thing as a machine that won't fail. So, how do we feel towards machines? I guess to me, maybe I'm just a crazy old man, but it seems to me that there's a foundational difference between something living and something not living.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems to me like insanity for humanity to seriously consider humanity, which is both conscious and alive, on this beautiful live world, full of life, full of creativity and full of beauty. None of those attributes apply to machines.
Mm-hmm.
And so I guess I'm just railing, hoping to preserve life and consciousness, right? Mm-hmm. I don't think Elon knows what consciousness is. I think he conflates it with intelligence, but they're two very different things. I mean, right. Thinking and thought, meditation. So at any rate, forgive me that little diatribe. Another question. I got off the track again. Because I think it's so interesting. But keep going.
Well, now my mind's on AI.
All right. All right. Another question or something about AI.
Well,
how do you feel about the NSA being...
I was going to say,
go ahead.
Suppose if the NSA or someone like that had these AIs, in order to really know its capabilities, it would have to act on the world, right? So
yeah, well, there's two ways for it to act on the world. One is to convince, Arthur Conan Doyle to go out and buy, 4 car batteries to put in series. Right? It can work. It can use humans as agents.
Right.
Just like dogs get us to take a walk, but dogs are alive. So, when you say it needs to act on the world, you mean it needs to have a direct access to the world?
Yeah. But yeah,
I don't think so.
But if it's through agents, then if it's only acting on the world through the human agents employed by the NSA, then that's a severe bottleneck.
What's the goal?
Well, if you
it's only a bottleneck in the context of certain goals, not in others.
Well, if you're developing an intelligence that you'd want to be testing it on all the different tasks that humans can do. And
no, I agree. Okay, I agree with you, but you're looking at it as an AI scientist, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're saying, I want to develop an AI that's powerful and able to function in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're saying that it will never be able, it needs a body, it needs to be embodied in some way, or it'll never know what reality actually is. Everything.
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying it has to have access to to the world, at least. I mean, it could be digitally, but it needs to be able to take actions and make predictions about things and be tested on its predictions and its actions. Right.
Well, how far do you think that is away? How far away from that do you think we are?
Well, that's already happening with people talk to ChatGPT and they're going to make decisions for their work already, right? People are creating images, and so you could look at ChatGPT or any of these other AIs itself as an AI that's acting on the world, but that's being done in public. It's not, and so the capabilities are known by the public right now. For that one.
Okay. And then you have the Tesla robotic cars.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, that you're talking about next year. You're talking about this year.
Yeah.
All right. You're going to be alive, I hope. Probably to the year 3000. I'm talking about a little bit further down the line and trying you guys thinking about what the role of a machine is in human affairs. Because it's not clear to me. at all. I mean, you can, again, maybe it's the Arthur C. Clarke, but we can defer to it and hope for the best, which a large percentage of people are doing.
Mm-hmm.
Or you could try and shut it down, which some people are advocating for. I doubt it's possible. Or you could infiltrate it, like the deep intelligence state and the Pentagon already has, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or you could say we're not going to allow it to operate in the world except in very circumscribed ways. I mean, I think I was reading somewhere recently that it was a Salesforce CEO was saying that the year of the agents has arrived. And then I think I read somewhere else that within the 2 years, CEOs will be running their companies just with an AI.
Mm.
Well, is that good or that bad?
I don't know if I think, I don't know. I don't think it'll
good. So good and bad obviously are human judgments that are relative and depends on the context and all that. So your hesitance makes me feel good about what you've been reading and how you've come along in that sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
But let me just reframe it another way. Okay, I think I can articulate it. The problem with 98% of people who are discussing these things is they're assuming the AI will be conscious.
Mm. Right.
And what I'm saying is that there's no way it can be conscious unless we hook it up to life, or
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why Elon's doing Neuralink, right?
So yeah. Well, what came to mind for me is that like no one's gonna in the long run, no one's gonna complain that the trucks are driving themselves, that your Uber driver is driving isn't a real person. No one's gonna complain about that in the long term, right?
Correct.
Because it's just gonna be better. They're not gonna crash. You're not gonna have a smelly car. But if say, no one writing their own movie scripts anymore, and it's all just AI automated stuff that's like TikTok that's just hooked up to be as addicting as possible. Now that might be not the best.
Okay, all right. Or if they decide, okay, this whole thing of nation states is really outdated. It's like racism. It's outdated. So let's get rid of the nation states. Or let's get rid of religion, right? That's
Mm-hmm.
outdated too,
Mm-hmm.
right? At any rate, these themes and many others, I think, are in this book called Childhood Zen. And to a thoughtful person, I could almost recommend it as a dharma book.
Okay.
Although I think Clarke was, a really hardcore atheist. Doesn't matter.
Okay.
The themes are important, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
All right. I'll take a look at it.
All right, good. All right. Take good care. Anything else?
I don't think so.
All right, sir. Que te vaya bien.
All right. Thank you.
All right, we'll see you. Bye.
Bye.